How do you start an AI workflow when you have no idea what you're doing, when you're a beginner with this? Maybe you've got a little bit of prompt engineering skills, but how can you string them together so that you can have a consistent workflow? In this video or live stream, this is what we're going to work through. So let's have a look at what we're dealing with today. I am looking at 6 different workflows that I want to test out. Now, I haven't done them yet, so we will have mistakes, we will have different paths that we go down as we do this, but at the end of it, the goal is to figure out either the prompts or the workflows for all 6 of these. So let's look into them individually. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the hierarchy to mind map, and this is a 2-way transformation that we're looking at. So at the moment, you're looking at a mind map. And what I like to be able to do with it is take the information in it and take it over to a text file in a structured format. And the reason this is important for me is that I often use mind maps to build context for ChatGPT. But I also want to go the other way. I want to go from a hierarchy that I've written in a text document and bring it back to the mind map. The next one that we're going to look at is the prompt builder. So what we'll do is we'll just head over to this view here. Now, prompt engineering is something that you can learn. There's a skill to it, there's a structure to it, but you can also use tools. And the one we're looking at here is the Anthropic prompt generator. I often use it. The problem I have with it is that it has formatting issues and complexity issues in prompts that I don't want in my system. And the reason for that is that when I'm doing a prompt, it's usually very simple, and because it's in a workflow, so it knows the other complexities are further along the workflow, so this doesn't work for me too well. So what we're going to do is consider formulas instead. So I've just pulled up a search on prompt formulas in YouTube, and we're not going to explore this today because it's definitely a different video, but the goal is to use these sorts of techniques to come up with perfect prompts. And while we're thinking about it, we can also consider, are there other prompt generators that we should be using? Because when we look at the perfect prompt builder workflow, this is a tool and there are already tools out there. The next thing I want to do is talk about the story to podcast. So let's think about what that's going to be. So at the moment, I have a YouTube video out here on Cozy Cafe, and on the AI TLDR channel, I also have 3 podcasts that have been created using Notebook LM. Now there's a few different tools we can use, Notebook LM, Jellypod, etc. And what I'm looking to do is take stories from Chiang Mai, Thailand, and convert them into a podcast that helps to promote a business called Cozy Cafe, and that's listed here as a brand. The next thing, and very much related to it, is videos to podcast. So if we just jump back into, let's see where we need to be. Let's talk about Appy Dave first. So from a video to podcast, we want to see if any of the long form videos that I've been doing over a period of time can be converted into a podcast. The other area that I want to look at is all the live streams. So if I hit refresh on this, we should see a new one pop up here because we're in the middle of it. So when this live stream is finished, I would love to be able to turn it into a podcast. Now, for that to happen, there will be a workflow. I don't know what it is, and that's what we're exploring. Now, the last 2 areas that I should consider is LinkedIn. So I currently have a workflow for doing LinkedIn posts. So if you go to my LinkedIn profile, you look at the posts I do, all of them are based on the normal videos. But I've been learning recently that a powerful thing to do with LinkedIn is just to do videos. The problem is I don't want to repurpose my videos. I don't want to post them full because I'd like people to come to the YouTube channel. All I want to do is comment on it, right? Talk about it for 2 minutes. So what I'm looking to do here is come up with a video scripting technique. And why did this refresh on me? I'm not sure what's going on here. What I want to do here is come up with a script based on my YouTube videos that I can then just talk to the camera. Either it's an outline I talk to the camera, or I use the teleprompter, which is sitting over there that I never use, and I just share it. So the last one that we're going to look into is also the live or the long form to community posts. So let's just jump in over here for a second. And I've never used the community tab other than it's a place where comments come in. But I was just listening to the guy from Creator Booths talk about just how powerful the community tab is. And I thought, well, okay, how do I get information into this in the form of memes or little infographics or tweets or whatever? So at the moment, I'm just considering this one, because this one, these two here, they're both the same, right? They're just different output formats, but essentially they're just working from live streams or long form videos. So I think that's our overview. Let's get into it in depth. So the first area we're going to do or test out is this hierarchy to mind map. And in this, all you're going to do or see is me going from some text that I've put down here. It's a hierarchy, and I want to get it into a format that can be useful. And you know, as we go through this, let's bring up Napkin AI, because one of the reasons a hierarchy can be useful is that you can turn it into very interesting graphics. So here we are, we're over on a new napkin. It's not the video I'm working on. I'm on 35, but that's okay. Let's come down here, and I'll just show you this. Let's just paste this in here. Go over here, paste it in. And so what I've done for you is just copied the actual node hello. And what it's done is included a link to the mind map that I'm on. So we can see that right here. And it's got this little heading sort of thing, and then it's got a bunch of indented bullet points. Now, what Napkin AI can do from simple information like this is turn it into an infographic. And this is not the use case we're trying to deal with today, but we can see different ways you can think about it. So the first one is Appy Dave Research Cozy Cafe. So it's taken a few ideas, but as we move through, we've got flags, we've got stuff coming out of my head. So this is beautiful. I should have started with this. Anyway, let's come back to what we're trying to do. And I've created, in the hierarchy to mind map, I've created this little node called do not keep. And I'm just going to press copy on it, and I'm going to take us over to, I think I want a web VS Code view. And here we go. So I've already put it in there, but I'll put it in one more time. And what we'll do from this point is I want to figure out a new format. So let's look at the format we've currently got. And the new format I want is going to look more like this. Do not keep. And anything that's got a dash in it like this, I'm just going to select them all from this section and delete them. This is the format I want. And we probably don't want this as well. So I'm going to call this section, if it was a step in a workflow, I'm going to call it mind map to raw text hierarchy. And I never know how to spell this word. There we go. We'll go with that. Now, that then means that there is the ability to go the other way. How do we, in fact, I don't think we do. I think we can go from a complex shape. Let's say we've got a complex shape and it looks like this. And this is just us doing some stuff in Markdown. So we might say, very much like it says right here, do not keep. We might say, we have a Markdown document like that. Now, what I haven't done is save it in Markdown format. Might also be useful, because then you'll see what this kind of looks like for people in the real world. So here we have, we'll just drop out of that for a second. And you can see that the document that I've got on the left, this is how I am using information on my computer all the time in Markdown documents, but they visualize quite easily. So you can see the visual hierarchy right here. And that's because it's got this little heading 1. But the problem is, if I was to copy this over into MindMeister, and we will do that by going to this view, I think, and we come back to the mind map tool, and we'll just go with test, and we've got our information, and we paste it, and we can split this into a tree, and so everything is beautiful, except it's got all this formatting. It's got dashes that I don't want. It's got hashes that I don't want. So this test is no good for me. So this is why we need to get something into a format like this. So what I'm going to do is paste this in here, split into tree, and now I have a clean hierarchy. Now you might be going, why are you so, you're talking about workflows, why are you so inclined to look at these hierarchies? And the reason is a workflow is a hierarchy. It's really, it has a goal. My goal here is not to keep it. It then has a standard operating procedure, a set of steps that you want to do, and it has a name. I've called it hello. And then after that, it just has a list of steps that you want to work through. So this is why I'm talking about the hierarchy one today. But what we should do is bring up a WebGPT view and have a look at this project that I've set up just for this live stream. So I have a project called 35 Agent Workflow Builder, Agent Architect. This is what we're working through. But the one we're going to deal with first is the hierarchy to mind map. So what I'm going to do is I've started off with a new idea, and I'm just going to give it context. I'm going to say, your goal is to turn data from simple structure, which I will provide you with, to a mind map and then back again. So when it's coming out of the mind map, we need to clean up some information. When it's going towards the mind map, we won't know where the source data is, but we need to also clean that up. The actual target format, no matter which direction we go, is the same, but the inputs can be different. So you ready to get started? Say yay. I like the say yay instruction because it doesn't respond. It doesn't try to go off and do stuff for me. And I don't want it to do anything. I just want it to sit and have some context in its head about what it's going to do. So at that point, we can come over to the do not keep one that we've got here. We might leave the test one, and we'll say this. I'm going to give you 2 examples of a hierarchy. The first hierarchy came out of the mind map, and the second hierarchy is how it should have looked. And so what we've done is just paste it in that, and we'll just pop on over to Visual Studio. You can't see this on screen, but I've just copied, and this is how it should be. And I think we now need to give it an additional instruction, and this is the prompt. So this is workflows and prompt engineering are tied hand in hand. Workflows are just prompts in a chain, right? Agents are a little bit more complex than the workflow in that you've got tools and RAG and different models and stuff like that. But workflows themselves are as simple as just prompts in a chain. So what I'm going to say is, my goal is to come up with a very simple prompt that will convert from a mind map to the natural hierarchy format down below. And let's see what we get. Now, while this is happening, I'm just going to pop up into the workflows that we're building and say that we're doing this. So what are the 2 steps that I would like in this sort of workflow? And the first one is mind map to clean text. And we could say hierarchy, but I'm just going to say that. The other one is any text to clean text. And this is the ability to go back, because even though the mind map had a certain format that had URLs and dashes and all that sort of stuff, it does work really well with the clean text format. So we've got two different prompts that we need to do, and they're going to be so similar to one another. It's just that this one is going to have a couple of examples of what prompts could be. So what we'll do is we'll just come into here and say, and you know, as we go, I could almost take this over here and say that this is the prompt that I'm ultimately going to want. So we'll just paste that in there, put the quote marks in it, and leave it as is. So we go, convert the following mind map structure into a clean hierarchy. Great. So let's go and pick one. Let's pick the one we're on. So we'll click this one and we will paste it in here. Can you do it for, in fact, this is how it would look in the real world. There would be data like this that we've got, and there would be a prompt at the top. And we're just going to paste that right in right there and get going. And hopefully it's going to clean up this stuff. It's going to clean up that. It's going to clean up all of that. And we're going to, okay, so we've got a problem with our prompt. Okay. Let's go and revisit the prompt. There are two flaws in it. The first is that you didn't include a sample structure, because if you did, you would have noticed that the output structure should not have any bullet points of any format. The other problem is that the output should probably go into a code block so that people can just copy it directly. So can you alter the prompt for me, please? So as you can see, I was a little bit premature in copying it over to the workflow. I thought it would work the first time, but it didn't. So now it's trying to say, ooh, now that's no good. Okay. Convert the following mind map example. Okay. I'm going to redo this, and I'm going to get rid of the code block. So this is more a problem with GPT Canvas, and it's typing in everything I said. With Canvas, or not using Canvas, you'll get this sort of format where we've got text and we've got example, but we need it to be one document. So I could go into Canvas, but if I go into Canvas, then this chat window kind of stops working the way I want it to do. There are some problems. I love Canvas when I need to do a document, but it's the last thing I do in the process because of certain other side effects. The other problem is that the output should go into a code block. So let's get rid of that section for now. I just want it to have a sample of the format. Okay, so now we've got the instruction, and okay, so can you put all of this information that you've just done as raw text into a code block? And so we've got the instruction coming through. We've got the example input, which might have dashes in it. The original sample input I gave you also had a root node that had a hash and a link in it. And the goal is that in the output, that hash and the link part of it would also be removed. Okay, this is looking fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to test it out, and we're just going to say, convert the following mind map to the corrected format. So then we come over to our AWB workflow and we paste it in. and we see if the output is an actual clean document. And the fact that ChatGPT is asking us for two different examples means it's trying to train itself. The problem I've got is that I really wanted to go straight to this format from the beginning. So I'm going to say work with that. We could use this right now. We'll just press copy on that, and we'll come over to our test node, and we'll just paste it in, split it into a tree. There it is. And that tree that we've just created should look very similar to this one up the top. How are we going to move this up? Let's just go up, 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 and look at them side by side. And they do. You can see all the information on the left came from this mind map through a transformation. So let's just delete that. And let's just come up to our final prompt here and edit it a little bit. Now, I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to come back into here. In fact, I don't need to copy it because it's here. Convert the following mind map into a structure. The output should be following example. And the last thing we need now, process and in all within a code block with raw text. That should have been what the prompt said. So now I've actually developed a prompt. I haven't used a perfect prompt formula concept. I haven't used a prompt tool. I've just written it through trial and error and figuring out what's going to come through. So we'll just let this one run, and hopefully we now have all the information based off the raw data, and we can test this out again. What we can do is, as it's going, we'll just copy everything that's in here down to here, because this is the prompt. We'll paste it in, go have a look at what it got. That looks perfect, and we'll just pick a different area. We'll go and select winning prompts. What's going on in there? Okay, we got a bunch of stuff going on in winning prompts. We'll just copy it and paste it in as our input field. And so when you're doing a workflow, it's usually prompts and input fields, and one or more things can be returned. We only want one thing returned. So as we go through, there it is. So that structure, if I was to copy it in and go press enter here and say WP2, winning prompts 2, paste it right there, go and copy this, paste it in there, and turn it into a tree. And that tree right there, which is really quite big, should be the same as this one here. And we'll just minimize a few things to make it more readable, and we can see that it pretty much is. So what's next week? So next week goals. So this whole workflow, which I ultimately want to turn into a set of steps. So I only really need 2 steps. They would end up being 2 things here. So the workflow you're looking at the moment, by the way, is this video. So before we got into this video, I said, how do you start building an AI workflow when you have no idea where to begin with? I gave it a, that's the hook that I started with. But this all started with an initial purpose. I'm going to walk through creating workflows, and I had different talking points that I wanted to deal with, and I had a goal. And ultimately what this built for me was a reference card, and we'll just bring that up so you can see what I'm talking about. So here's the reference card. This is what we're talking about. A hook that I never did say, a title that is in the video, and a bunch of other information. Now, this Look at Agent Workflow Builder is an internal tool of mine that I use, and this video is specifically about training a team member on how to set these up for themselves. But in doing so, I really have to show what all the ideas are that we explore along the way. So the first idea that we've been exploring along the way is hierarchies, because a workflow is just a hierarchy. Now, I could take this one step further and go from any clean text back to mind map as well, but I won't, because I think this section has taken way too long. So let's close or collapse the hierarchy, and move into the perfect prompt builder. Now, this one requires a deep video in its own right. So there's only so much we're going to take it. The main ones that I want to work on today will be these four, and I'll try and get some chapter links into the video for you. But let's come over to our next step, and it's the agent workflow prompt. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just have a conversation to build knowledge or context. Now, if you've used deep research, which I haven't, but if you've used it, you'll know that what I'm about to do now will be easier to do when the deep research part of OpenAI becomes available to everyone. It's available in America on the Pro plan. But I've been setting up a whole lot of bits of information around YouTube titles, around workflows, all sorts of stuff in documents so that I can do deep research. But I will wait till the deep research agent becomes available to me before I execute on them. But this is basically how I get started. In this conversation, what we're trying to do is build a prompt that generates other prompts. And I thought that the best way to get started is for you to tell me what the basic structures are within a prompt and the best practices for writing really good prompts. So it's going off and doing what it needs to do. And what we'll do while we're here, I'm just happy day of research. Where are we at the moment? We are, does this tell us how long we've been in it? It doesn't. We're 26 minutes in. So that's a long time for one section. But let's come over here. There we go. So what we've got here is basic structures of a prompt, right? Context, instruction, constraint. Okay, output. This is beautiful. Cool. So what I'd like to do now is maybe just turn this into a simple formula. So I'm going to go, if I had a list of steps that I worked through to build a perfect prompt, what would they be based on what you've just been telling me? So now what we've got, when you think of a workflow or a standard operating procedure being steps that you go through, here they are. Define the goal, provide the context, specify the task. Now, I think the next step that we should look at this, can you create a little table for me that has just the name of the step, a really brief description, and maybe an input field or two? Can you do it in lowercase dash notation? And one other comment at the end of, is this an optional or is this even conditional in nature? And what I'm trying to figure out here is, what are the input fields for the prompt at each step of the system? Unfortunately, it's gone into analysis mode, which means we're going to get it as a downloadable link. This is not what I want. Actually, maybe with the new canvas mode, I'll be able to see it. Yeah, we can see it. Okay, that's cool. Let's click on this. And unfortunately, let's bring it over to the bigger display. Come here, it'll be easy to read. Step name, define a goal, description, input. Just put in a goal. It's required, optional. Add a constraint, optional. The format, great. So this is perfect. So when you start looking at a workflow, you go, okay, well, we've already developed ourselves a bunch of steps, and we've also figured out what the inputs are going to be. We haven't really filled in the outputs, and I don't think we will. I think we'll leave it at this. And what we'll do is, can I get that as a copy? This is great for me. Can you put this into a code block as raw text table, please. Now, while it's doing that, I think we're going to come back to our hierarchy, because the next thing I'd really like to do with this, why have you disappeared, is I want to make sure that this is something that we can visualize in the mind map. So I'm really loving the output that you're giving for these hierarchies. It's very clean. Now I'm going to give you a totally different structure. What it is an actual table. And I want to figure out how would you go about putting this into the same or similar hierarchy. Same or similar is not going to help me in this scenario. So we're just going to press copy and paste the input field, and in it goes. So hopefully we're going to get a 2 or 3 level hierarchy. Required steps. Okay. Oh, look, that's not of use to me, this shape. I don't want to see required and optional. I want to see them sequential, and I want a flag as to whether they're like that. This is great, but rather than grouping by required or optional, can you just leave that as a required flag, and whether it's true or false against each of the steps? At the end of this, we should probably just have a simple 2-level hierarchy, except for the root. So we could say 3-level if you include the root. And Siri presents all sort of typing and grammatical errors, but generally this should work. And we've got it. Okay, so with this, what we'll do is we'll go over to our mind map, and we are currently working on the perfect prompt builder. And so if you wanted to build your own prompt builder, this is basically where you could start. So we'll press copy on that, come over here, and we'll paste it in. I didn't want all that bold stuff. In fact, what I'll do is why did that do all that bold stuff? It's because I got bold here. Let's get rid of that. Let's paste, split into topics, undo, because I didn't want it in topics. I wanted it in tree, split into tree, and there we have it. So we've built in a workflow. That's our first actual workflow being generated, not with the agent workflow builder, but just with a mind map. And I would suggest that that value here gets renamed into that value there, and that this just drops back here, and that just gets deleted, and we can just make that bold. So I'll collapse some of these and just leave 1 or 2 so that we can see what's going on. But basically, if you wanted to build a perfect prompt, here are the steps you would go through. You would define a goal, and that would be an input, and this would be what it's meant to do, and it would be required. If we were looking at this from, say, the agent workflow builder, so let's just pop that over there and jump over here, and we hit refresh on this, or no, we've already got it, it's just out of alignment. What we can see here is that perfect prompt builder would be the thing that we would see right here, perfect prompt builder. Then we would see a list of steps under, actually we might have a workflow called configure. So there might be something called configure, and that would be listed in this sort of area, and you'd go to the configure, and then you would see a list of steps. And in the agent workflow builder, you'd end up seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You'd see 8 of them across here. And then when you go to each of them, so let's say we're on the first one, which we are, it would say something like defined goal would be right there and right there. And the input would just say goal. It would say goal. And there would be a description, which I don't currently show, which would be under here. So we're about to look at using Agent Workflow Builder, but we're going to use a different tool to what we've done to basically create structures like this for the next set of workflows in the system. Okay, with that in place, let us move back to the next workflow. So story to podcast. Let's think about what this is really about. So we'll head over to GPT View. There we go. We got AI TLDR. So this is a faceless YouTube channel that I have, and we create videos on different AI tools. And one of the videos that we created was on Notebook LM. And in so doing, we tested it. We did 3 different podcasts. So we can see the 3 different podcasts.
So just like third place comes in.
Third place.
Yeah, you know how there's home, there's work.
And what we were testing was, does the podcast software work? How can we do graphics? How can we do lower thirds, which is the Alex Hormozi style of text coming up here, and going, okay, this is a really powerful tool. And also we're in the middle on this particular channel of looking at new videos coming up. So we've got the JellyPod. Actually, it's come up 1 minute ago. Look at that. That was providential. So JellyPod is like Notebook LM, only better. I'd love to watch the video right now, but I haven't seen it. So let's just get into it a little bit, see what it can do. Okay, create a podcast in minutes with JellyPod.
You know you can create a podcast in just a few minutes without recording a single word?
And let's just
Sounds
go
crazy,
across.
right? Well, with JellyPod, it's 100% possible.
Those all the, I don't know, hidden gems.
Right? It's like...
Okay, so this is about talking about authentic Chiang Mai adventures with Joseph. So this is a story. Oh, this is really cool that this came out 2 minutes ago, because that's actually what we're meant to be doing today. Story to podcast, Cozy Cafe. So here's the situation. I'm in Brisbane right now, and I also live in Chiang Mai for half the year. And it's this beautiful city in Thailand. The people are beautiful. The food is gorgeous. Everything about this city is a wonderful place to be. But as a Falang, which is a foreigner, there is stuff I don't know. I don't know where to find stuff, right? I don't know things to do. And what happens is you go off and you do stuff and you come up with stories. And the story we just saw in that particular video about Joseph in Chiang Mai was based off a friend of mine who lives over there, going on a tour up the mountain and just ending up in this raw village, and just the wonderful experience with himself and another lady and Joseph, the tour guide. So I said, okay, what we need to do here is take this story and convert it into a podcast. And so we are now currently testing workflows, even though right now this is actually a live stream on building workflows. So Mary, who created that video for me, has been exploring these sort of podcast ideas for a while. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at building our own story to podcast system. And this time what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the Agent Workflow Builder. And what you'll see at the end, we may not with this particular one create the screens. If we do, they'll look like this. We might just, with this first iteration, we'll just create kind of that tabular format that you saw in the last section where I turned the table into a hierarchy. So I think we can jump around between these ideas. So let's make sure I'm on the story to podcast setup here, just in case we need to have a conversation. And let's put in a workflow idea. So the workflow idea can quite literally come from here. And we'll put that in, and we'll come over here. I'll say, yeah, we'll just keep it simple. And Siri wants to talk to me. So we keep it simple, and we'll just paste it in over here, and we'll let it run. So what it's doing is figuring out through prompt engineering a goal and a concept. Transform written stories into engaging podcast episodes with narration, sound design, and structured storytelling to create an immersive audio experience. Cool. The workflow converts a written story into a high quality podcast. Okay, let's modify this a bit. There will be a very simple story idea and fact sheet, not a complex story. There may be a requirement for us to develop that story as part of a workflow. Now I'm just taking that information and I'm just going to rerun this particular section with a variation on the prompt, because I don't want it to just go from complete story to podcast. Now, the next workflow that we're going to look at, which is called video to podcast, this would be the case. It would be a complete story because the video's been done. But in this case, we've got really small pieces of information that we want to turn into a story, and it means we need to elicit information along the way. So I'm not going to go too deep into checking this because I do trust its output. If after this, as I develop this workflow further, I will come back to this and make it better. But let's look at the workflow concept. The story takes a basic story idea and evolves it into a compelling audio experience, refining, developing characters, perfect, structuring a script, selecting and generate, okay. Remove the voiceovers, that's done by the back-end framework. Ensure that the standard storytelling concepts like characters and scenarios and anecdotes and blah, blah, blah are part of the concept so that we can load it up into the workflow. So I said I wasn't going to do this, but I did, because quite simply, I want this to be a realistic workflow as well. And this workflow is about storytelling or creating the story before getting to the podcast. So we'll just click on that and we'll move into the next one and we'll paste it in. And what will happen here is we're going to get an objective. Is that what we're doing? I think so. Objective. This workflow enables GPT agents to collaborate in transforming a simple story idea from a fact sheet into a fully developed podcast script. It ensures the integration of essential storytelling elements, including character development. Cool. I'm going to also modify this a little bit more. Let's just change the workflow objective a little bit, in that a different tool will actually create the podcast. So our goal will not be to create the podcast script, but to create all the information in a sequential story format for the podcast. Now I'm doing this in the workflow objective. Normally I would actually go back and figure it out into the concept and goal as well. So this is good. So we'll copy this information and let's just move over and make sure we've got that. So now that we know what we want to do, we have an objective for the workflow. It's very easy to figure out the steps. So we'll just do that. Let's get a list of steps. Now, before, when we did a list of steps using the mind map and just talking, it was a lot more detailed, but this is ultimately all it needs to look like. Extract key story elements, expand premise into structure, develop characters and roles, define scenarios, add anecdotes, organize into a sequential format. Yeah, great. This is perfect. Let's press copy and we'll just make sure that's in the list. The next thing is when you look at the agent workflow builder and you go, okay, take this one for example, we've got the agent workflow design and we've got, if we click on here, we got 5 steps. And then we click on here, we got 2 steps. And this is just me keeping separation, the standard operating procedures for the workflow for a few different reasons. Some of them need to be fully automated. Some of them need to be totally human in the loop. Some of them need a certain skill set or mindset. So it's really important that if you've got a workflow, that you do consider that you break it up into sections like we're seeing right here. So what we'll do is we'll come over to the list of steps. We'll organize the steps, which is what we're trying to do. And this is a prompt right here that needs a little bit of improvement. I did this one about a year ago. So, and I'll tell you why it needs a bit of an improvement after we see it run. So what it's going to do is take all the information that's in that list above and put it into sections. And the reason I find personally that it gets it a bit wrong is usually the groups are too small. Now, this may not be the case today. Like if we're going to have 3 sections, it's okay. Story, extraction, and structuring. So we've got 3 steps that we're going to do. Narrative development, we got 3 steps that we're going to do. And then finalization. In fact, you know, today we don't have any problems with the prompt. Often I do. Often I have something like 8 steps, and it's 2 steps and four sections. It's just too fine-grained in that particular scenario. So just going to press copy on this. We'll get over to the workflow builder we've organized. Let's come up with a name. So when you come up here, I guess, Agent Workflow Architect, where did this name come from? Did I type it in? Did I come up with it? No, I didn't. Why should I? AI can do all my work. So we come over here, we copy it, and we just paste it in. And we'll get a potential name. Storyweave, podcast narrative builder, Storycraft, sequential story structuring, podcast story. Look, the podcast story framework is good. I'll go with. Do I need to say? I don't think I need to say Cozy Cafe. You kind of do, because Cozy Cafe has a very specific version of the story thing, but at the moment we can keep it kind of generic for now. So we'll just put that in play. We'll come in over here and we'll just also put it over there. So now let's figure out what the input fields and the output fields are. So when we come back to here, and we look at the perfect prompt that we did earlier, we said define a goal. What was the input field? Well, it was a goal. Then we got the provided context. What was the input field? Well, it was a context. Okay, so this is the stuff we want to get, and there can be more than one. One of the things that this particular workflow that we did over here didn't do was say, well, what are the outputs, right? They're not listed. Well, the one we're about to do right now will actually do the outputs as well. So we're just going to click on this and run it through, and what we'll end up with is a table which has the phase name is the section, storytelling, story extraction and structuring. Then we got a name, and this will show up in the tabs in the page. So okay, there's your phase name, there's your step name, and then we got a description which will be useful, but I don't show it on screen at the moment. And then we got some attributes, like these are the inputs, these are the outputs. So we're just going to copy this information, and we're going to create a little programming construct. So if you're a programmer and you've heard of infrastructure as code, it's the ability to write some code and it generates all the resources on AWS or Azure. Well, this is agents as code. So we just pass in the specification and we run it. And what we'll end up with is a little programming language. Now, this tool, I've had it for a year, but I have not put any energy into it. So it's got all sorts of problems. Like I said, it's a behind the scenes sort of tool that I do like to use. Let that keep building. And while that's doing it, I need to figure out what we're doing over here. So has that finished? It's still going. Agent Workflow Builder. I'm going to go into there. If I brought up a VS Code view, what would you guys see? Okay, right. So what it's done is said, I'm going to create an agent called the podcast story framework. And I said, we'll go into GPT. This workflow transform a simple story into a structured sequential narrative. And it's going to find all the prompts at this particular location. And when it loads in all the prompts, they're going to go into a variable. So they're going to be loaded in from a file. These are the attributes that we're collecting along the way. This one right here is the one we're actually interested in. It's the final story framework. And then it's a bunch of phases or sections followed by the steps that you do. And what we'll do is we'll just copy this information and we'll come down to a VS Code GPT view. And hopefully not have any problems. I haven't done this for a couple of months. So let's just come in here and say, what are we going to call it? I think it's listed podcast story framework. Now, I want to say to you, if you're watching this and you're going, oh my God, he went into programming. What am I going to do? Please be aware that if you're interested in this as a tool, let me know in the comments below or sign up to, there'll be a link down below that you can sign up to, because if enough people are interested in this, I'll turn it into actual SaaS application. Like I said, this is just something I use internally. So we come up to the top. I don't think we need to care about the time. I'm just going to go down to the bottom, and I don't know whether that folder is correct. Let's just go and have a look at this one. So look at how amateurish this is at the moment. It's okay. I would love to finish off this product, but you know, time being what it is. So we hit save and we just see if we get an error. No, we don't. Oh, this is cool. So I'm just gonna make sure we got the other one open for a sec. Let's go to that one. And we're not interested. This is, I'm just going to go in here and call this one.json. I just need this data. Actually, it's 35. We've got 35.json. We'll take that. Come over here, and we're going to press copy. And you guys can't see what I'm doing. Sorry. Save A35, and we're going to call this. It's a workflow. This is a workflow. What workflow is it? It's a podcast. For Cozy Cafe, we'll just say cozy for now, .json. We'll save that, and I'm just going to make sure that all the data that we've got in our workflow is available to us. So we've got that, and what we're now going to do is come back to here. We've hit save. Theoretically, the application can now support the story framework. So let's just check what the URL would be. I think this is what it's going to be. So let's test it. And we come back to my little internal tool. This has gone and refreshed itself. That's okay. We'll duplicate that and we'll just see whether this is working. It is. Okay. So now we've got a podcast story framework. You can't see what I'm doing. Sorry. So we've got a podcast story framework, and we've got a story extraction and structuring. And we can see that it'll take a fact sheet, and theoretically there would be a prompt. Now, remember, early in the piece, we did the perfect prompt builder. And this, if I had this particular workflow in play, I'd be able to create the prompt that we're seeing here. I don't have it in play, so what we can do instead is we could go and create it over here. And let's just do one just so you can see what I mean. If I wanted to extract key story elements from a simple fact sheet of information about a story, and from that, Well, that's actually what I want to do. I want to extract it. What would the prompt be? So that was silly what I just did. I wasn't thinking. I want to give a fact sheet of information about a story, and what I want you to do is extract the key story elements. That was smarter. So what the Anthropic prompt generator will do is take some inputs and build some outputs. So we could test this right now, I guess. So let's just copy this information, paste it in here, and go up here and say this is actually a different format. It's called fact sheet. And we'll say, there was this interesting story about a woman and her cat. The woman is 30 years of age, and the cat that she has is a tabby that gets scared when in libraries. And she went into a library and all hell broke loose with water fountains. So what I've just done, I'm just going to create a ChatGPT and turn off Siri, and I'm just going to paste it in and see what we get. So this is about building a fact sheet around a woman. Now, why has it not done the fact sheet? It's because when I did it, I did not put an underscore in here. So let's just put the underscore. And just so you can see what's going on here is this is where the information needs to go. So we just press underscore and the information is now there. Come back to here, we paste, we edit, we open, we paste. And now we have, wow, this is cool. I hadn't even thought of what it was going to do. Not specified, author, so a whole lot of information not specified, but we have a place, we have a character, and we have a plot. Okay. Okay, and hey, this is really cool actually. I like this. So the librarian gets incredibly irritated and starts using a water pistol on the cat. I said that because we got a conflict in the storyline. That's what it said. If you go over here, you can see central conflict or theme. So hopefully that's going to pop out. The other thing is title, cat disasters. Come back here and we could edit. I'm just actually gonna go on from the conversation. And so now we've got a title and we have characters. We got 3 characters. We've got a plot. And how did you miss the central conflict or theme? Well, we've got a cat disaster going on. I was surprised that it didn't figure that out. So this would be prompt engineering. What are we missing in our prompt engineering? Now, we've gone really fast on this. It's really generic in nature. When I'm building stories, I generally know exactly the sorts of pieces of information that I want to put together, so wouldn't have as much trouble. So we've got all this information. Now, ultimately, the goal in a workflow is that that particular information would jump in over here, and we would go to here, and it would be pasted in all that, and there would be a new prompt. So at that point, I don't think I'll take it any further. You've seen that a podcast story framework would be getting the key elements, expanding the premise into a structure, developing the characters and roles. All of these require prompts, of which we need a workflow for prompt building, and we kind of have it all available here, so we could do that. And then blah, 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 down to the final story output. Now with the final story output, let's say it's a 3,000 word article. We could pump that directly into Jellypod or into, let's go to here so we can see what we're talking about. Where are we talking about? And we come back. We could put it into Jellypod, which is what we're using here. If we look for Notebook, there should be a bunch of videos going on for Notebook LM, and really simply get yourself a podcast. Now that then leads into why I really want it. So the storytelling for Cozy Cafe is one of the reasons, right? I want to develop a little podcast here that is just talking about ideas. But the next area I want to do, so we've finished that, is actually converting my long form content and my live streams. So you're listening to a live stream at the moment, and there's plenty of errors, right? The reason I do the live streams is so that I can get my ideas out really quickly and at least have them recorded. Now, if no one ever watches this live stream, it doesn't matter to me, because I have a project called Project Theodore where agents are watching all my live streams, and the goal of that is to convert those the live stream moments into shorts, to convert them into long form and live streams, podcasts. Everything that I'm saying right now should theoretically be able to go straight into a podcast. But for that to happen, I need a workflow. So let's go and create that particular workflow. Let's come back here. Let's just duplicate this for a sec and we'll refresh it. Oh no, that's not the one we want. We want this one. Let's go and run that. So new workflow idea. I have a live stream that I can do on a daily basis, and it's technical in nature. It's usually planned. It will have a beginning and end and a list of things that we want to go through, but we have no idea the path, because it's usually testing concepts behind the scenes that we have not tested in the past. What I ultimately want to do with that transcript, and it's the single piece of input that we'll have, is that it will become a podcast. The podcast will need to absorb a couple of other pieces of input. That includes the title, because that gives focus for the podcast, and talking points. So what we'll do is figure out where we are going to do this. So let's go into a video to podcast conversion, and we'll just paste this information in and see what we come up with. So objective: convert a dynamic unscripted live stream into a structured and engaging podcast by refining the transcript, incorporating key inputs, and ensuring a cohesive narrative. Great. I need to keep coming back to this. Ensure that it's a draft setup for a podcast, because a different tool specializing in podcast script writing will absorb all this information. So don't consider that you have to write the different characters. Don't consider anything other than that this is a story getting ready for the podcast, and that there are areas of the story or the live stream transcript that we want to focus on, which are the talking points. Now, this is information I could have put back into the workflow idea, but we can do it at this point. So we'll just take the information, we'll put it into the goal, we'll take the information. This time I'm not even going to read it, because the nature of this is not to get it 100%, but just to give you an idea of how you can get this together quickly. So what this will end up doing is giving us a workflow. Objective is to transform unstructured live stream transcripts into structured drafts that serve as a foundation for a podcast script. So that's perfect. I'm sure there's other useful information in there, but what we'll do is we'll click on here, press copy, and figure out if someone had to do this, what would they do? Okay, so, and this is where I'm training Jan, who works on the Winning Prompts channel. I'll just bring that up for a second. so you understand why this is important. So winning prompts, we did a 10-minute live stream yesterday to create this logo. Like, I don't have time to do logo design, so 10 minutes later we had it. It's good enough. What we're doing here is we're educating people on prompt engineering. So all the stuff that I'm talking about will come through as videos over here. It's also about one-shot prompts for applications. So an ideal situation that's come into place at the moment is Replit and Cursor and Ada and Bolt and V0, which are all agents for writing code. And all they need are simple requirements documents. So if you know how to write a requirements document, you can create an application. Now it might be a micro application, but as they get better, it might be a fully blown SaaS application. So what we're doing right now is that he's developing the workflows, the storytelling, and he'll be using it. Now, why did I say that? So we were in the middle of doing something. Let's just come over. So these are the steps he needs to do. So the step is that he needs to get the live stream transcript, has to extract some information. He needs to segment it, identify what areas would be useful in a podcast, right? Because there'll be a lot of stuff in the transcript. Enhance and form. Yeah, beautiful. To me, this is 1 or 2 steps, but let's see what groups, I should say, phases. So I've just come over and we're just copying some information in, and we're running a new prompt. And don't go more than 2. You went more than 2. Okay. Keep it down to 2 phases. The first phase is acquisitions. The second phase will be around the idea of creating the narrative. You can use your terminology, but just keep it in 2 phases. Let's come up with a workflow name. So what is it? It's a live stream to podcast. Well, there we go. Live stream. Perfect. First one. I'm sure there's others, but it doesn't matter. So we can go down, we do a workflow, name will come up, we'll get ourselves a list of what are the parameters going from one step to the next step. We've got the name of our workflow, we've got the 2 phases, we've got the steps, and we're not even going to read this, we're just going to come through and generate a data shape. And I put it in there, do I? Yeah, press copy. Generate that. Think about what is it going to call it. It's going to call it live stream to podcast draft. So let's just come over here for a second. Let's duplicate this and let's just go live stream. How's that going? Is that finished? No, it's still going. Live stream to podcast draft. Now that should fail, right? It's not a valid URL at the moment. We haven't built it. So let's go into a VS Code GPT view for a sec. Let's go here, take a copy of this. Actually, let's take a copy of that first. Head down to our code. Let's create a little agents as code concept. That will be what we call it, RBX. This sounds good. Press copy, come over here, paste this in, hit save. That will live stream to podcast draft. So I actually got the name wrong. Let's make sure it's that. We don't need time, not relevant. Hit save. If we haven't got a problem, I might need to restart the web server. It's just running on Astro at the moment, and I don't think that was the right name. We'll paste it in. We'll go to web. So we're over here, and let's see if that works. And it didn't. So what am I doing wrong? Really need to make this an application. Okay. So let's just check that it generated the correct data file. It looks like it did. we certainly have live stream to podcast draft. It looks like it should be the right name. And we'll run this. And it didn't work. Why did it not work? It can't match it for some reason. No, that one works. Okay. Who likes breaking out into coding, debugging applications in the middle of a live stream? Certainly not me. But what we'll do is have a look at where this file actually went to. It's called Podcast Story Framework. That's one. And it hasn't generated the file. Okay. I know the problem. And I'll have this with the next few too if I don't fix it. So I'll put that in there. Hit save. Okay, that might have worked. We'll come back here. Come back to our page and we're working. Oh my gosh. Silly Billy. So now what we've got is a workflow for doing live streams to podcasts. What we'll do is we'll take all the I didn't show it. We'll take all the information that's in here. We're going to copy it. So we got all the information we want for the transcript. We'll get the audio. We've got a prompt. We'll extract the title and topics. Then we'll go into the segment transcript. But if we come back to our little GPT that we created earlier, I said, can you create a hierarchy, please, from this document? And what we're now doing is creating it in a format that we can visualize it in the mind map as well. So let's just come back to our mind map and say the one that we're working on is there. And I'll just copy that and we'll paste it in here as the live stream variation, and we'll paste it in as a split into topics. Undo. We do that mistake every time. Split into tree. So we've got two phases: transcript acquisition and organization, narrative structuring, and framework. From that, we've got 4 steps. Capture the transcript. It'll take a live audio stream and it'll output a raw transcript. Then it will extract the titles. So from that, which was here, so let's just draw a little line between there and there. It will then create 2 fields. So let's have a look at those 2 fields. We've got one that, they're both going into there. So that's fine. So the goal here, the next thing I would be doing is coming over to the story extraction and structuring, or actually the podcast story framework, and I'd be filling in all the prompts. And again, the prompts, all I really need to make this work is a prompt generation workflow. Once I've got that, these will be really easy to put in place. Now, at that point, do we go any further? Because I don't want to go through creating the screens again, but creating these sort of mind maps might actually be more useful. So let's talk about the last 2. Now, the last 2 are almost the same. So that's an interesting thing as well. So we go into a workflow design and we'll say, come up here. We'll make sure that we've got a fresh area called video to LinkedIn. We'll pop that in over here and we'll say, what will we say? We'll say LinkedIn to video script. My goal is to take a live stream or a long form video that will be between 10 minutes and 2 hours long, and convert it into a video script where I can just talk about the key concepts and ideas to a professional audience on LinkedIn. Take that information. We'll end up getting ourselves a goal and a concept from this. We'll be able to head over to there, convert into concise. Great. Put that there, put that there, put this here, put this here. What are the steps involved? Well, that should be basically the next thing that we do, I think. Or is it a workflow objective? So now, we went from the idea to 2 ideas, a goal and a concept. Now we can compress them back into a detailed objective, and that's a single document going on here. From that, once we know the objective, we can build ourselves a list of steps, and once we have a list of steps, we should be able to organize them into a group. Transcribe video, identify, extract, summarize, structure. Okay. Too many steps, just combine a couple of them as you see fit. The problem with too many steps is that it locks you into a structure, and you should be at any point be able to go based on the output, have custom questions, but you don't want to define custom questions as a step. So extract. This looks good. Hopefully my AI microphone is actually getting rid of the noise. I've got a circular saw in the apartment next door going off at the moment. It's incredibly distracting. So let's put this in here. And now we have organization. Only 2 steps or phases. You know what I might do with my prompt? I might have it by default only ever do 2, because it's easy to make them bigger, but it's a pain to bring them back. So let's go here and let's figure out what we're going to call this workflow. So if you were in a GPT store or a workflow store, there's the sorts of things that you'd want to see. Streamline LinkedIn video scripting. Cool. That's the one, because the others kind of imply that you might get an article. We don't want that, so we'll put this in. And from this point, I will not put it into the workflow. I won't turn it into a visualization other than as a mind map, I think. So let's look at our mind map. We can come back to here, convert to hierarchy, paste it in. We can come back to here, and we've done that and that. We're now on this one, so let's go and work it out. Has it built it? Looks like it's built it. Let's test whether this is okay. We'll paste it in here, and we'll make sure this time finally I'll press the right button. And we got 2 phases: analysis and extraction. We need transcribe the video, analyze the raw text, summarize the insights, which are 2 concepts. No, they're coming from 2 concepts into a summary. And then we got structure the script. Okay. Then after it, we refine it and optimize it for LinkedIn. So this is also interesting, the refine and optimize. Like, why wouldn't you do it all at one step? Because usually I like getting all the information in the general type of structure I want for as a fact sheet of details, flows, and then finally format it for the target output. So that shouldn't actually say that. It should say LinkedIn video script, something like that. Okay, great. Let's move on to the last one really quickly, and then we can close out the live stream. It should not be, to be honest, much different than the one we've just done. Long or live to community post. Okay. let's come over to, I think we'll go to this one. We'll duplicate it and we'll come in here and we'll take whatever it had at the beginning. No, I'm just going to type it. We'll say, I need to create a community post on my YouTube channel. There'll be polls, there'll be summaries of videos, there will be infographics, etc., etc. And what I'm going to be giving you is the actual transcript from a video, which could be a live stream or a long form video, and you have to determine what sort of community post would be great, and then go down the process of gathering the information to create that particular community post. So from there, we can just press copy on that, and we'll head over to the last one in the list, which is live or long to community post. We'll just paste that in there. Now, one of the things that the Agent Workflow Builder that I've been using internally doesn't deal with well is flow diversion. It's on the list of things for me to look at, but you could have seen there that as soon as I got to a type of community post, this is actually a flow diversion. We're off, like an infographic is totally different to a summary for a document. So these are areas that I'm thinking through with this. The other thing is, I don't do this purely to build an application. I do it to test agentic ideas so that they can be implemented in other tools more specialized for doing the automations. Things like LangChain or Crew AI. And just so you know, I'm feeling stressed at the moment because I've got this damn chainsaw or circular saw outside going off. They picked the worst time to do this. Press copy, paste it in, and we'll get a list of, we'll get an objective, and I'm only going to trust in it today because I can come back and resolve this later. And we'll get a list of steps. And from there, we've got that. Now, this might be the point, by the way, where I can at least do workflow changes by, why did that not work? So copy that. By using sections or phases. So why do I not have a step list? Oh, we didn't create it. Okay, sorry. So here's the list coming through. We'll take this just as it is. We'll solve this next problem in the organizing of steps. So we'll paste this in and we'll say, can you also consider that if it seems like there is a split in the flow, can you just create a phase for each split and just notify it? And this should happen somewhere after determine best post format. So I need a lot less groupings. Let's go with the transcript analysis. Let's go with the post format. And then I want 3 different types of content generation. I need one for a video summarization. I need one for a tweet, and I need one for a infographic. And then the last phase will just be bringing that information together, which is optimization, review, and finalize. So what I'm trying to state here is that at this point, we split off not into that one, but into a few. So it could be that one, it could be that one, or it could be that one. After that happens, we can bring them back together before publishing. So we just copy that information, and I think we could come up with, well, let's get ourselves let's not get ourselves a workflow name. Let's go straight to here, and let me show you how this could actually look if it was a hierarchy where flow control was involved. Now, that's if I can. So, what window am I on at the moment? This is the window I want. Okay. Create an output hierarchy based off the following information. I will have further instructions after you've done it. Alter the hierarchy to consider that the 3 content generation types are different paths that come off the determine best post format. Everything then comes back together in the optimization and review phase. Perfect. We can take that information. We'll head over here and we'll paste it in as a tree, and we should get exactly what we need. So what happens in this particular workflow, if it was working, is that you would go to a workflow called live or long community post. It would actually be whatever we said in the workflow name it generated. Then you would do a transcript analysis, and we're just trying to get information, 3 pieces of information. Okay, once we've done that, we need to then determine the best format. And this is a selection criteria for the human in the loop anyway. And from that, go down one of these paths. So there's different information that we've got to deal with for the 3. Once one of these is generated, so what then theoretically happens from a linking point of view is that we just go straight to there from any of them. Click on that. And click on that. I'm glad I did it this way because dealing with workflow splitting is something that I need to address in my own workflows. And there's some pretty powerful workflow tools out there. If you want me to go and review some of them, I think the main one at the moment is Gumloop. But just let me know and I'll go and do that. But in the meantime, I'm doing it all within my own systems because for me, this is about having the right tool for the job. And most of them aren't actually that good at creating workflows quickly for the way I want to do it anyway. So that said, let's just come back to, where are we going to come back to? Let's just come back to there for a second. GPT. I'm Appy Dave. Please like and subscribe. If you want to work with me one-on-one and have a Zoom call and we'll just talk through different workflows that you're trying to deal with within your business, then you should be able to find a link in the description. If on the other hand, you want to get clarity around where you're at, I'm also going to have some quizzes coming through that can give you insight into what you do and don't know about working with prompt engineering and workflows. Well, that said, I'm Appy Dave. Have a wonderful day, and